Well, hi, everybody. Thanks for joining this Cybersecurity Tech Talk. We're going to be discussing email security, new and current challenges for introducing by migrations to the cloud. I'm Joe Raffanelli. I'm Director of Technical Solutions here at Microsoft. At Microsoft, we have a powerful combination of business and experience and technology expertise, providing clients with best-in-class solutions and software development projects. Super excited to discuss this topic with Scott, which is our Microsoft's Chief Security Officer, and Todd, our Security Officer. Both Scott and Todd have over 25 years of experience in cybersecurity space. Their experience has helped many people over the years, protecting them from cybersecurity threats and educating them on attack prevention. Thanks, gentlemen, for joining this call, joining this very important topic. So before I let you guys talk, I'm gonna jump right into it. Let's start by asking, what is happening in this email space?
Yeah, Joe, we're seeing just a huge increase in individual email accounts being compromised, right? And it's really been since the evolution of the cloud and the move of email from in-house on-premise into the cloud. So the bad actors, they're leveraging the contacts and information within those compromised individual accounts, and then they're leveraging PII, which is personally identifiable information, and then they start to solicit money from the contacts and the folks within the compromised email account, will be it financial folks within the organization or to banks if they can see bank information. And so they're pretending to be that individual, and then asking somebody within the company to make a credit card transaction or to help them with some financial information or some sort of a payroll transaction. And the increase has been huge in the amount of accounts compromised that we're seeing in the cloud mail space as opposed to the old on-prem systems.
Okay, so thank you for that. I appreciate that. Audience reminder, we're going to do chat questions at the end. I'm just going to continue on with additional questions here. How has the migration of email to the cloud services affected email security?
Well, it took away in the old on-premise, the Exchange server type of mail solutions that were either in co-locations or on-premise in a data center for an organization. They've moved away from that physical perimeter protection, such as a Barracuda appliance or a Trend type of appliance in front of the mail gateway, and it's kind of left you to the offerings of the Googles and the Microsofts of the world that are the G Suites and the Office M365s. So I think in the planning from the move from on-prem to cloud, a lot of folks are overlooking the importance of the perimeter protection and the various items such as geofencing, which is territorial, and being able to block certain entities, IP addresses, countries, geographies. And a lot of that has been left out of the move to the cloud during the migration and in the front end design. Some of those things are available in the cloud solutions and others are not.
And to continue on with what Scott said, one of the other big changes in that move is on the login control side of the users. It's just not as granular or as robust as we used to be able to put in place. Before, you used to be able to decide what kind of steps you wanted your users to go through in order to get remote access. That could have been MFA, VPN, certificates, a lot of other different security methods that we had on premise, or even just blocking users from accessing remotely. There's a whole myriad of solutions for us. And with that move to the cloud, now you've just got to follow the controls and methodology that have been put in place by that cloud vendor. So you don't get to choose how those are going to happen and what order they're going to happen in. You have to go ahead and follow their rules and what they've set up in place for your users to have that access. And then some of those higher end features, if you do want to enable them and get back to more on-premise type solutions, there's an additional cost. So that might be, buying an elevated premium license in order to turn up those extra features.
Well, both good points, guys. It just sounds like everybody is very vulnerable in this space, and it does get scary by the day. So I appreciate that. Okay, so let's go to question number two. How are hackers and bad actors executing attacks and compromising email accounts?
Yeah, they're, the typical phishing, baiting. They're still
Yeah.
reaching into you. They're finding you out on contacts on LinkedIn's and websites and social medias, and they're finding you and they're finding your email address, and then they find their way into you. And a lot of times, users will trip over some attachment in an email or a link within their email, and just that quickly and unbeknownst to them, they've given away access to a bad actor. And then once the bad actor is in, they're really good at simulating being the user, right? They have access to your signatures and the logos of companies that you interact with, and they know who you're interacting with, banks and financial institutions, and they're doing it very well. More and more that it's almost it's funny. It's almost like they're hiring marketing firms, to do the hacking. I mean, they're leveraging all of the content and the graphics that you have within your mail and what your partners and other folks that you're working with, and they're extracting those. They obviously have the information, and now with AI, it's getting even more scary, because now, traditionally there used to be some of the grammar and the language mistakes that you could pick out and see in those mails, and know it's probably not a financial institution because they've got grammatically incorrect, or the tone of their message. And now with AI, it's game over. I mean, they're leveraging AI, and they can simply put into a chat GPT and say, hey, I want to pretend like I'm a bank, and then start to talk bank lingo, and before you know it, the AI has given them a really good path in to just copy and paste that into the email, and start reaching through the contacts of that compromised account.
Yeah, and once they've got one of those targeted accounts, and gotten access to somebody, now they can really start creating some targeted campaigns. They can look at your website. They get your officer names off your website, sometimes your team and sales force contacts, and they can collect a lot of information about your organization just from the outside in public records. And then they turn around and use that once they've compromised and gotten into an account. They get into those accounts, and their goal is to hide as long as they can without you knowing. So once they've got that compromised account, they want to dig around in there. They don't want you to know they're there, so they're not doing obvious things. And then when they start their campaigns to try and contact others, they're creating rules that will move email automatically or delete emails automatically. So it's even harder for you to notice that they're using your own mailbox against you. And then once they've got all of that in place, now they're using the good reputation you've built up with your organization to target your coworkers, clients, other companies that you work with. And their goal is to propagate that attack onto as many individuals and companies as they can once they get in somewhere. And it's kind of, a domino effect that once they get into one good business, they can trick a lot of other businesses with your good name and the fact that they're used to doing business with you through those malicious emails.
Yeah, very well said. I mean, and Scott, you can brought up the AI thing because it's really hard to detect. I mean, I think everybody has a story about phishing and things of that nature. I know I have a few stories of my own, so you really have to be diligent with this kind of stuff. Okay, thank you for that. So let's move on. How do cloud-based email services like Office 365 or G Suite address the security issues?
So most of these vendors like Microsoft 365 and Google Workspace, they offer some critical services out of the gate like MFA, um, and those type of things to try and keep your account secure. However, these services are designed to be user friendly, and they don't want you to have a expert for you to get up and running on them. They want to be able to lure in as much business as they can. And so for those reasons, there's a lot of things that they don't do by default because you need an expert to understand how to configure them and how they're going to impact email and what might get blocked and what might get allowed. And so you really need somebody to go through those higher end settings and get all of those phishing and baiting emails blocked so that they don't end up delivered to your end users. So you really need a good team, to implement those for you. A lot of those vendors are also putting a lot of more of those policies in a default setup. But there's just a long way to go, with the out of the box setups. And of course, they're wanting you to come in, and so they're creating these nice, attractive, basic packages and starter packages. And those starter packages, fit a lot of people's budget, but they don't have the security or services features that you might want to enable in the end. And so these companies get onto these services thinking, oh, this was a great deal at this great price. And then they start having these security issues and having to deal with these vulnerabilities, and realize now that they're having to pay an upgrade for these additional services, like geofencing, encryption, archiving, all of those type of things. Then that obviously leads to, an inflation of the cost of migrating to the cloud. And now these organizations that thought, that their budget was right in line and, everything's the way it should be, now they're way above and beyond their original estimates for migrating to the cloud.
Man, it's just crazy. You said a key word there. You need, well, expertise, right? Experts like you guys. That's why people have you guys on their team. You know what I mean? To make sure those bad guys can't get in, and that protection is so, important. You know what I mean? So it's crazy out there. Okay. How can companies be more diligent and improve email security?
I think I'm going to kind of pick up where, Todd left off with his last conversation about the last question, right? I keep going back to the perimeter protection. And of course, that's now moved and torn down with the move to the cloud, right? But as Todd said, you have to plan for it. So, you have to do a lateral or a simulation of what you are doing with the perimeter. And the things that worked from your old system, you need to now mimic those and find those in your new solution. And as Todd said, some of them are a la carte add-ons and an increased change of license. There are other, and everybody seems to think that it's all Microsoft, all Google, or all whoever the other, cloud. Those are the two main email providers. They think that it's all just encompassing, and it's really, really not. There's that whole check to checker thing that you lose when you go with a single vendor solution. And, the higher end IT shops or, fully staffed IT shops that have, a series of design solution architects and network engineers, they realize that there's third party solutions that can plug in front of these solutions still. And they're leveraging those, right? And, but smaller shops or tighter budgeted shops or, multi-hatted IT, as I like to call them, that are flipping hats to support the environment. Sometimes they just don't have the time to actually go out and look at a third-party solution, but it's key. Get that third-party solution up in front of that. Do the check to checker. Use the base package, but look at what your base package offers as well, and look back at what you did. Right, it's all part of the migration and the project plan up front. When you go to do the email migration, you kind of look at where you are and where you're going, and you need to list out the key factors. Right, and perimeter protection is just huge as far as a key factor that has more or less, I don't want to say lost, but kind of been overlooked. And I think it's just this mindset. If we go to the cloud, it's the big boys, nothing can happen to me. There's that, chest beating of there's nothing that can happen to me because I'm with this enterprise solution now. And, that's not entirely true. There's things such as encryption that just, there used to be, solutions in front of the perimeter that forced encryption. And now you've got to kind of go in, and as Todd, pointed out, that you have to go in and actually do these configurations. And it's more work than it used to be. You used to be able to turn up the solution, set a policy in front of an encryption solution, and bang, it worked, right? Now you kind of got to go in more granular, and then you have to pay for those additional a la carte services as well. And then now that takes the budget you thought you were in and, multiplies it. And then there's nothing like train, retrain, and train again with your users and your technical folks, right? and always review your solution. You know, once you've made that move to the cloud, you know, step back, look at it, and you know, survey your users and survey management, and you know, do a cursory overview of the system. Go back through and look at the design you just threw down, and you know, make sure that it's working for you. Make sure that there's nothing missing. You know, turn on some logging if you can, and then train, really getting your users up to speed and knowing how to identify malicious content. Having IT, you know, kind of work with the users. It's everybody's job, and that's the best way to remain diligent is, you know, practice diligence at every level within an organization.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Companies have just got to think, you know, not if we get attacked, it's more like when, right? So be prepared, be diligent. Like I kind of keep saying the same thing, but that's just the way to be. I appreciate you saying that. Okay. How can we train our staff to handle new email security challenges that come with cloud migrations?
So there's a lot of good online training products that offer, you know, training on all the current attack vectors that are being used by these malicious individuals. And they're readily available for anybody. You know, it's just a matter of going online, looking at the different products that are out there, choosing one that fits your industry and your business best, and then signing up for that service. And they're going to help you get, you know, that configured and get going and get that training out to your users. A lot of these products are also going to include your simulated phishing and baiting emails, you know, so that you can test and further train your users with those. You know, and then you get a lot of feedback for management and your team. You know, if you send out that phishing email to everybody and, you know, all 500 of your employees click on the email, you've got a problem, a big problem in your organization. You know, if you only get one user out of 500 to click on that, you know, simulated attack, then your organization's doing very well. And maybe just an individual or two needs some, you know, personal one-on-one training and a reminder to be diligent. So those things give the companies a lot of insight and a lot of feedback on, you know, what level of understanding their users have on what's going on out there. So those can be extremely useful. And then a lot of those utilities also have, you know, assistance, you know, for the IT departments in checking email configurations and doing assessments on your email service to make sure that you've got your, you know, protections and spoofing and DKIM and DMARC and all of these, you know, 4-letter acronyms that go along with email security in place. And so taking advantage of those extra features, you know, from those companies or third parties or services like us that can do that for you, you know, take advantage of those and just give your email security a check and make sure that, you know, there's nothing obvious that's been missed in those critical setups.
It's so easy to get fooled. Something happened to me not too long ago where I got a little bit fooled and I was a little bit embarrassed, but it's so easy to get fooled with all these phishing, and so you really do need that training like you had said. It's very, very important.
Yeah,
Totally
and
agree.
one thing I'll
Yeah.
add on top of that, Joe, is that, you know, you really need to foster that, you know, it's okay if you got fooled. Don't be ashamed of that inside the
Yeah.
organization. You know, you know, we're all human. We all make mistakes. There's none of us that don't. And if you do make a mistake, it's important to let the IT department and management know right away, because if you get embarrassed and you don't let people know, that can lead to a much bigger situation. So, you know, very critical topic there you touched on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good point.
And I think, you know, I just want to just kind of put some closure, or, you know, just one more
Sure.
thing on top of that. The bad actors come in, or they'll come in and they'll sit for a while. They're not just coming in and starting. They're not coming in and just executing, right? They're sitting there. They're getting to know you, right? So they're sitting below. And as Todd had said it earlier, you know, they're making rules in Outlook and in your back end, and they're sitting there, and you don't know that these rules are made, right? So, you know, just one training mechanism that's key would be to train your users to review if you have Outlook rules or email client rules that are, you know, they're great, right? They route something from your boss to your boss, a folder that you named after your boss, so that you know to go right there and find, you know, what the boss says to do, or, you know, or a partner or anything else. The rules are great, right? But nobody checks them, you know, unless they're broken, and then they're calling help desk or IT or a consultant to help them. But check your rules. If there's anything in there that looks a little funny, it probably is, because what they do is they'll come in, they'll set up rules, they'll watch your habits, they'll start to get to know you, they'll comb through your email, and then they're little by little, they're testing. And, you know, it's way down, like in the RSS feeds, you'll look down in your Outlook, and then that's a default out of the box. And you'll see where these rules are dumping, you know, their knowledge down there. So they're hiding, and then they also write rules to delete. If you see rules deleting emails, think twice. And that's, you know, that kind of goes hand in hand with the training, but it also, you know, goes hand in hand with the daily diligence.
Yeah, makes sense. Thanks, gentlemen. I appreciate it. Okay. So we're at a point where we're going to ask the audience for some chat questions, and we'll give it a minute or so, and then we'll get that going. Oh, okay. First question. What are the new email security risks introduced by cloud migrations?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'll see if I can answer that for us. The move to cloud put us into a less granular control at the IT, the engineering, the oversight level. We lost a lot of the granular account control, right, of what we had. We've now taken it out of house, so we've lost, you know, I said this a little bit earlier, but we've lost the perimeter controls, you know, some of that perimeter feature set in front of the mail, that check the checker, you know. And we've made it more complicated to do white and black listing of emails. You know, Todd talked about it earlier, where, you know, you can take a domain that's hitting 500 folks, and it's, you know, johnny@badplace.com, and you can block johnny@badplace.com. But it's more complicated, and it's less granular in some of these cloud-based solutions too. So, you know, is it available? Absolutely, but it's a different mindset. So you have to go in, and you actually have to remember, you know, and they do within the migrations, but you need to remember to carry over those white and black lists and make those functional right out of the gate. You know, there used to be, you know, some of the old third-party stuff that sits in front, and it's still available, where you would get a security digest, and the user could decide, hey, I know this person, I trust it, implicitly whitelisted. So now, you know, your user community used to help you kind of manage your mail solution, right? They knew when it was a bad guy, or no, this is a bad guy, block him. So, you know, through those user digest functions, you know, we've lost some of those, and some of those are still available in certain ways, but, you know, those weren't thought through when they did the migration. In a lot of the migrations we've seen, and a lot of the calls that we get where there's compromised accounts, you know, they used to have this digest, and they say, well, gosh, the user used to be able to just say, allow this or not allow this. And now it's not there.
That's interesting. Thank you for saying that. Okay. All right, another question here. Can cloud migrations improve email security, or do they only add new challenges?
Yeah, let me take that one, Joe. You know, it always depends on the design and selection of your cloud solution and who's performing that migration. Every company is always a little bit different. Mail migrations have a lot of overlap, but there's also a lot of things that are, you know, individual to organizations that need to be really looked at and analyzed. And so it's really important to have that, you know, right team in place going over that. There are more challenges, you know, especially with the perception that when you move to the cloud, everything's done for you. Which there's nothing further from the truth than that. And it's one of the biggest danger things that, you know, people get in their mind, that if I'm moving to Google Workspaces or Microsoft 365, that, you know, these guys are doing everything for me, which really isn't the case. They're giving you a platform, and they're giving you software that you get to use, but you still have to configure that and set it up for your organization, your needs, and your security needs as well. And that's where you still need a very experienced team to handle that for you. Yes, you know, you could go read some articles and get an account set up and get it going. fairly easily. That's where I talked earlier about, you know, they want to bait you in with those basic plans and make things easy for you. So yes, you can do that, and it's a great thing that that service is there. But it also leads to those dangers with those higher end features not being enabled. And so, you know, I wouldn't say that, you know, the migration to the cloud improves or degrades security. It all depends on who's managing the project and who's doing it, whether or not that's going to stay as secure.
All right. Definitely no easy button.
No.
I mean, they give you, a little bit, but you really have to know what you're doing
Yeah.
to protect
Yeah.
yourself. I totally get that. Okay, we got another question here. What are the best practices in preventing email security during a cloud migration?
I'll take that one. Have a good solid plan. Map out where you are, and then on the other side, map out where you're going, and try to line up what works back to the other side. Right. So within your it's all about project planning and design. Right. So look at your current design, map it out, list out what works. Single out what absolutely works, what you can't trade, or what you still need, and then decide. Then look forward to where you're going. And is there a transferable line item over to the other side? Can I remove this and it's available now in the cloud? I just have to configure it. So, figure out what you need, what works. Go to the other side in your design and decide, is it available in that cloud-based solution, or do I need a third party? And start to identify, what worked, what you should continue to keep. What might be transferably already inherently there in that cloud solution versus what may require, another solution in front of it, or a plugin, or another utility, a third-party utility. So try to mimic and duplicate what works of your current environment, and then look at why a lot of folks are moving to the cloud because it's more secure. Right, they're leaving a less secure solution, or an older version of Exchange Server, or a deprecated operating system, and they know that because they're moving to the cloud. Now, where do you benefit? What's better? And start to identify what's better there too, what doesn't work, so that you don't carry it over. And again, know what your users have and need, and it goes back to those rules and some of those things as well, so that your migration isn't as much of a challenge. So have your users kind of participate, survey them, as to what their special needs may be in plugins, so that when you make these moves on how to accommodate the entire gauntlet of it.
Totally agree. Great advice. Hopefully folks are getting something out of that. Yeah, great advice. Okay, let's see if there's any other questions here. All right. All right. I don't see any other questions. All right, folks. So I want to thank Scott and Todd so much for their, expertise, and clearly you guys lean into this stuff. You guys love this stuff, and you guys have lived it. So I'm sure folks got a lot of information, from you guys, and you really helped out a lot of folks. If anybody on the line has any other questions, or just wants to chat about what their current situation is with cybersecurity, you can certainly reach out to us. Contact information is there now. We can get these folks on the phone and we can talk it out. But for now, I want to thank everybody for their chat questions. Obviously, I want to thank Scott and Todd for their expertise and for their time. Take care now.
Thank you.
Take care.